Welcome back into First Take. The Miami Heat take Game 1 from the Philadelphia 76ers 106-92 without their best player, Joel Embiid, who's sidelined at least the first 2 games with an orbital fracture. Tobias Harris led the Sixers with 27 points, while James Harden finished with 16 points, 5 of 13 shooting, running a streak of being held under 25 points to 11 straight playoff games, his longest since he was coming off the bench for the Oklahoma City Thunder to start his career. Tyler Hero finished with a team-high 25 points, while Bam Adebayo added 24 points and 12 rebounds for the Heat. James Harden staying optimistic.
It's one game, but things can turn fast. So, the sooner we can correct the things that we can control, the better off we'll be. Obviously, we're missing Joe, but, it's out of our control, and we got to go out there and man up and be great. And I know we will do because we've been resilient, so far.
And look who's joining us now. Cavs coach J.B. Bickerstaff, so great to have you, sir. An excellent season with that young starting squad. Really tremendous, tremendous job.
Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to have you. And we're going to revisit Harden. It has been over a half an hour, okay? So I know sometimes there's a statute of limitations, how much I'm allowed to talk about things. JJ Redick starts to give me the side eye. But you know Harden. You were with him in Houston. So tell me this. I'm interested from a coach's perspective. If you're Doc Rivers, how do you utilize Harden now without having Joel Embiid?
Well, you have to quickly make him as comfortable as you possibly can. And by doing that, you have to go back to when he was most successful. And you go back, you watch the film of when he was in Houston, and you got to figure out how you can put him in those positions, and I'm sure Doc is. That team was full of shooters, so they gave him plenty of space, and then they played quickly and early in the shot clock. So you got to see if you can, how quickly you can get back to that and make him comfortable.
I want to be clear on one thing, Molly. The statute of limitations only applied to the Los Angeles Lakers because we were doing 4 segments a day in April when they had been eliminated from the playoffs. Okay. So I actually wanted to talk about the playoffs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
have you heard of this guy named LeBron James?
No, I get it.
In case you haven't heard, he sells. And guess what? Tim Legler co-signs that because he was right there with me.
The Nets had a long shelf life, too. I know JJ's talking about.
Gentlemen, there's a thing in the TV business called playing the hits, all right? People aren't always sitting there for 2 straight hours. Work with a girl.
Yeah. Sweet Caroline.
Oldies but goodies in the case of the Lakers.
Always.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Do you want to piggyback any more so on what Coach was saying?
One of the things we talked about in the first segment was just his inability at times to get by guys. So there was a great play that Houston used to run where he would throw it high post, get down to the right corner, set a little inverted screen for him, and he'd come off 2 screens getting to that left hand. Incorporating more of those sets, I think, will be helpful. And again, he can make tons of plays. Going to his left hand, that left-hand pass, lob pass, pocket pass, back out to the 3-point line. I think that's great. To me, the adjustment's got to be more lineup-based, and they need more shooting. I'll repeat what I said earlier. Tobias Harris and George Niang going small, playing them at the 4 and 5. Mixing in a bunch of zone, as I mentioned. 71 offensive possessions in game 1 in the half court against man, 1.13 points per possession scored for the Heat. When they went zone on those 23 possessions, they only scored 0.65 points. So they had a lot of success with that zone. Now, the bad thing about a zone is very hard to match up on the offensive glass. And P.J. Tucker absolutely killed them last night. Bam Adebayo killed them last night on the offensive glass. So if you do go small to benefit James Harden, you also need to put an emphasis on the offensive glass.
Great. I think one of the things they can also do is maybe not make him the primary ball handler up the floor as often as he is. Because what happens is right now, James Harden, you go back to Houston days, right? It was always his ball, especially before Chris Paul got there. His ball, he comes up against a stagnant defense looking at him, 5 eyes on him. But he was so good and so explosive, it didn't matter. And he was making the step-back 3 at a high enough rate that you had to get up on your toes and lean forward, and now he'd go by you again. He's not really capable of doing that at that level. So now what do you do? I think rather than come up the floor and you're looking at 5 sets of eyes, and whether you ISO or run one ball screen, they're obviously shading toward him. How about maybe give it up or let Maxey bring it up? Let Maxey create some action because he's certainly capable. Let Miami react to that. And now when the ball comes on a reversal, James is catching it with space with someone closing in him. Maybe that gives a little bit more of an opportunity to get into the paint. But I think if you're going to continue to let him bring the ball up the floor 40, 50 times a night, with it at like 3/4 speed, getting over half court now looking at a defense this good with this kind of personnel locked into what you're about to do, and you're just not quite the same physically, I think that's a formula for another 20-point loss in game 2.
Legs, how many times, though, have we seen James Harden off the ball in a spot-up position. The ball is kicked to him, and rather than quick shoot or quick catch and go, he waits for the defense to get to him and gets into his dribble package and goes ISO. Like, that's his game. I think starting him on the move, that allows him to create some inertia and try to get downhill, try to create space and make plays that way. You can't reprogram a guy 2 rounds into the playoffs, 13 years into his career. I understand the sentiment. And look, Maxey has got to be better. He's got to have the ball in his hands more. I get all that. But getting James Harden into some movement sets where he can create some inertia, I think would be the way to go if I was Doc Rivers.
No, I was on top of that, like you were talking about the lineups. You put Tobias Harris at the 5 at the top of the floor, put James in that opposite corner. Now they've got to guard both guys. James comes off quickly to his left hand. They've got to make a decision on whether or not they want to switch that. Now you got Tobias Harris popping. You can throw it back. Now he can attack closeouts, and he's got the ability to roll. You can put the ball in him in the pocket, and then he can make the next play from there also.
Coach, while we have you, I want to go big picture. What chance do you give Miami to win the East?
I think they got a great shot at it. I think when we go back, they're built for this. And you watch them play in the regular season, they don't play regular season style of basketball. The basketball they play is to prepare them for the playoffs. The playoffs, we always say it comes down to switches, right? How many guys on the floor can guard multiple positions, and then how many guys can go out and beat their man. That's something that they do all year. So they've prepared themselves. They're physically tough. They're mentally tough. They've got guys who can create, and they got guys that can shoot, so they give themselves a great chance.
And a great coach.
Eric Spoelstra is as smart as they come. And one thing I like about their team, they have the luxury right now. Kyle Lowry probably was ready to play last game. And they're going, well, wait a second. We've got Jimmy Butler. We've got Tyler Hero. We've got Bam Adebayo, who can handle the ball, run your offense through. They got Victor Oladipo playing now. Gives them a little bit of luxury to buy some more time to make sure he doesn't see the floor again until he's physically ready to go beat Kyle Lowry, because he's a guy that's going to throw himself into the fray a lot. That's just the way he plays. So it lets them buy a little bit more time. But I love Spoelstra. I love their versatility defensively. Anybody going to be shocked that the number 1 seed ends up in the finals? Of course not. But, if I had to lay money on it right now in Vegas, my money would go in Milwaukee.
I just want to make one point about the Eastern Conference playoffs, and this is a long-term trend over the last 5 or 6 years across the NBA. But the teams that have placed an emphasis on big two-way wings are the team, to your point about switchability, are the teams that are going to have the most success in the playoffs. We just saw Harden go against the Toronto Raptors with OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, big team. Milwaukee Bucks, big wings. Boston Celtics, big wings. For the Sixers, they don't have those big wings outside of Danny Green that can play both sides of the ball. Matisse Thybulle is their best wing defender, and he's a liability offensively, and I think that really hurts this team.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want you to know I could have worked LeBron in, because I know you don't like top-heavy rosters. I made an argument he should finish his career in Cleveland, but I saved you from that, and I talked the playoffs.
That's just me.
I saved
You avoid some
I
tapering.
really just saved Coach. Let's be honest, but don't think I wasn't tempted. But I